Right, hello everybody. Hi, I'm Imran Syed. I'm a partner in the tech and sourcing team here at DI Piper. I'm also a member of our AI subgroup. I head up our AI contracting division. So I've had a quick look at the agenda. I can see that there are quite a few lawyers yet to speak, so I have committed to do two things. First of all, I'm going to keep it quite short. Second of all, I'm going to keep it quite light on the law. So what I'm going to talk you through is the results of our survey into AI governance. So last year, in 2022, in the last symposium, I spoke a little bit about the EU AI Act, about public policy that's emerging onto the market, and then very, very soon afterwards, ChatGPT burst onto the scene, and the discussion became turbocharged. All businesses were talking about what's the impact of AI going to be. So it's both as an advisor and as a business ourselves, we wanted to have a look at what empirical evidence there was and what empirical patterns we were seeing with businesses around their AI adoption. Where's value being created? Where do they see the risks and the challenges? And what particular issues are they facing when they look to create value out of this new technology? And this is why we produced the AI governance report. So in terms of the methodology, we interviewed 600 AI decision makers across a range of sectors and locations. The interviews were conducted anonymously, and we don't maintain at DLA a list of the names who took part, so we preserve that anonymity. Our research covered broadly 4 areas, and I'm going to cover 3 of them briefly today. But for those of you that want to read the report, there's a link at the end of the slide deck, and there's additional insights in there about our key sector differences that we noticed. So pick the sector of most interest to you, and you'll be able to see the particular nuance around these issues and what clients are facing in those particular areas. So first, we'll look at AI deployment. So how and why are organisations deploying and using AI? Second, we'll look at the prevalent challenges and risks that they're facing with AI deployment. And then finally, we'll take a look at how organisations view governance around AI and what they think good looks like. So let's move on to the report itself and think about AI adoption first and foremost. So I'll start with the least surprising statistic in the room. 96% of organisations have deployed AI, and 55% of them are agreeing that there is some kind of competitive edge that is generating for them. But in terms of how our organisations are adopting AI, the statistics are showing that the overwhelming majority are buying in the tools, as opposed to building them from scratch themselves. So 72% are buying in the tools, as opposed to 1% that are building the solutions in-house. And that's a clear indication of the high cost of investment associated with building a stable and strong AI solution. It's a high cost of investment. If you think about the largest foundational models, they require huge amounts of data, huge amounts of computing power and expertise. That costs time, that's money. However, there are a significant proportion of businesses that are taking a hybrid approach, and that's something which resonates, I think, particularly with law firms. So trying to get the best of both worlds, having the speed to market of ready-built solutions, but then also building their own solutions and their neural networks on top of those in order to provide a more focused, nuanced, sector-based solution for them. And we as law firms are particularly interested in making sure we get that pinpoint focus on our industry whenever we deploy AI. So it will come as no surprise that if 72% of organisations are buying in AI, that a similar proportion would describe themselves as explorers rather than leaders in AI. So most organisations are still trying to figure out what their coherent strategy around artificial intelligence will be and how they're going to best use the technology to benefit their organisation. So less are feeling confident at this stage to say they're a sophisticated user and developer of AI at this stage. But when we ask businesses how would they best describe their current focus on AI, there was a relatively even split between a focus on efficiency and transformation. And I think that kind of chimes with some of the earlier discussions that we've had today, particularly from the Everest group at the beginning of the day, that organisations are putting similar weight on making efficiency gains and optimising their processes using AI as they are with applying AI to transform their businesses more radically as part of a wider change agenda. So in terms of asking our clients to be a bit more specific as to what exactly they're applying AI to, we ask them to provide some very clear answers as to how they're currently using AI in the short term and what their focus will be in the long term. And what you'll see here is that the focus on the customer is quite overwhelming. So AI is being used to deliver direct customer interactions. So chatbots was a topic of conversation earlier today. We're seeing the increased sophistication of those technologies. AI is being used for product improvement, for R&D, to give a competitive edge to the products that you offer to customers. AI is being used to deliver more targeted marketing and insightful advertising. If I was to pick up probably on just a couple of surprises on this, I thought that finance and legal looked a little bit on the low side, and I think there's probably a couple of factors at play there. I think, first of all, there is maybe a little bit more reticence in what are seen as higher risk functions or potentially regulated functions. But I think there's probably also a bit of underreporting going on as well. I think to the respondents, it isn't quite as immediately obvious that AI is underpinning many of the modern tools used in these functions by their solutions, that they're not quite as obvious and front-facing as, say, a chatbot would be within the organisation. So, we've looked at how organisations are using AI at the moment, but we also wanted to understand what they viewed as being their most significant challenges, their most significant risks. And we found a mixture of challenges. Some of those might feel more tangible, some of them less so. At the top of the charts, organisations, 99% of them were saying that good governance is seen as a challenge. So that's defining and understanding exactly what is a responsible governance programme, what an effective AI governance programme is. They're still struggling to define what that might be. There were some more focused legal concerns, such as having enough oversight over regulatory compliance. There are particular concerns around IP, understanding what IP is being generated and how that can be protected within the existing legal frameworks, which are probably still some way behind these new technologies. But there's some very human challenges in here as well. Overcoming fear, a more general notion that organisations have to face with the risks that AI can introduce into a business, or simply how to manage expectations internally as to what AI can do and on what timescales. How long would it take to deliver benefits within the organisation? So some really human factors in there as well. So we also asked them about where they are likely to see risks emanate from, whether they see risks predominantly emanating internally or externally. So a significant portion did see risks as external. I think there was a particular view that some of the vendors that our organisations interact with don't necessarily yet understand the regulatory nuance or the risk nuances of their particular business or sector. I must say that's no surprise. That's the same with every new technology. We're having the same conversation about cloud, and all those challenges ultimately were overcome by the market. I think the same will likely be true of artificial intelligence. But what you can see from this slide is where there is a view that there are some external risks, that is far overshadowed by the view that the predominant risk is still coming from internally within the business. And a particular concern is around the democratization of artificial intelligence, the idea that employees can find access to tools that generate new outputs and new decisions using artificial intelligence that they can't track, that organisations can't get a grasp on, and so they can't appropriately quantify and mitigate those risks effectively. So it feels like a real blind spot for many businesses at the moment. And these challenges, these risks, they're not just theoretical. So of our respondents, 32% had been subject to a fine or an investigation connected to data privacy or competition concerns around artificial intelligence. A smaller percentage had been involved in disputes around privacy or intellectual property rights with their suppliers. But our report also showed that 43% of businesses had been forced to pause their AI projects. So most commonly around privacy or IP concerns, but also again around a concern that there wasn't effective governance to be able to manage the risks. But of course a pause doesn't mean an abandonment. Projects do pick up again in the natural course of things. And here's where it started to get a little bit interesting for us, because 83% of respondents then went on to say that their governance is effective or somewhat effective, and they have no plans to slow their adoption. And so that probably felt like a bit of a tension to us. So we've got 99% of respondents saying good governance is their biggest challenge and projects are getting paused as a result of this. Still more confusing, only 61% are saying they're confident in their regulatory compliance around AI. 52% say they don't use their legal teams at all to make AI decisions because they're seen as blockers. So there seems like there's a bit of tension there. So one way to read that statistic might be to say, well, they're all just overconfident. We think our governance processes are much better than they actually are. But I think it's probably a little bit more nuanced than that. I think the prevailing view from businesses is that they can't afford to let themselves fall behind on the AI revolution. They can't be seen, they can't fall behind their competition and the benefits that it can deliver into the organisation. So the governance that they're rolling out at the moment is good enough for the purposes of keeping that pace. So there probably is a recognition here, I think, that AI governance is on a journey, and it does need to improve, and it needs to improve quickly within organisations to catch up to the unique risks of AI. And there's a few factors that I think probably will be at play. So just keeping an eye on the time. A very few set of thoughts that we had around some of the conversations that we have with clients about where should they focus on when it comes to AI governance program, when they want to make an effective governance program. So first, they need to build their knowledge. You can't run an effective governance program unless you understand the technology. How does it work? What are the unique risks? What are the benefits that you can bring using artificial intelligence? And we spend a lot of time with our clients promoting this understanding at the board level, at the legal team level, and further out into the organisation. Secondly, think holistically about the risk. We've talked about some of that, the internal risk, the external risk. This doesn't have to be a negative exercise. It can be quite cathartic. You're looking for a full understanding of the holistic picture here, so that you can get the full picture of risk and reward, so you can understand how to make deployments sustainable and not just short-term. And in that light, governance needs to take a long-term view. This is an extremely dynamic market we're in. Regulations changing, guidance is changing, the technology is changing even quicker than that. And so the governance program needs to look ahead at what's coming. You know there's regulation coming in Europe, and you've got a pretty good idea what that's going to look like now. But then there's also going to be the unexpected, so you need to be adaptable to those changes as and when they arise. So on to the final slide then. A lot has been said about values today. AI governance programs are no different. Your values as a company need to be reflected into your AI governance program. What's important to the way that you treat your customers, about the way you treat your employees. So what does ethical AI mean for you as a business, and how do you codify that into your governance program? We've also talked a lot today about partnerships. So given that 99% of businesses are buying in AI in some form or another, Think about how you navigate those AI partnerships. How do you do due diligence on your suppliers? How do you do due diligence on the technology that your suppliers are bringing to the table? How do you think about the cultural fit with your suppliers to make sure that you've got an effective and long-term partnership? And ultimately, how do you contract with them? What do you want to see in your contract with them to promote good governance? Think about tying a bow in it. Who has responsibility for compliance and oversight? Have they got the right skills to be able to fulfil the function? Or you're trying to bang a square peg into a round hole? Make sure the people or the functions that you employ to monitor and enforce your governance programs have the right skills and the mandates to be able to do it. And then finally, do what you're doing here today. Engage with your peers. Talk to your industry. Find out what they're doing. What are the emerging best practices? What are the emerging standards? Because for the time being, in the absence of hard codified standards, those are your best sources of information in order to be able to understand how you stack up against the rest of the market. Ultimately, we are seeing the development of firmer standards around AI governance, and those will continue to crystallise as time goes on. So that just about wraps it up for me. I hope you found it interesting. There's a link to the report at the end of the deck. I'll just skip to it. So please do feel free to download a copy, and any questions I'm happy to take over drinks later on.